But the good thing is if you keep the dividends to be a reinvestment into a Chinese company, you will be given 40% tax credit. So that is a good way. So there are a lot of ways to get your money back. The thing is how to structure how to design the structure.
Well,
Yes.
A lot of the first things that she mentioned. So there's the consulting fee, and royalty for use of new IP and things like that. I mean, those are your classic transfer pricing arbitrage that apply to pretty much any parent-sub relationship. China is definitely, they're getting more sophisticated in dealing with transfer pricing issues. They're getting more aggressive in dealing with transfer pricing issues. So you do want to make sure that you're putting things like that in place, that you've looked at it from a U.S. and a Chinese transfer pricing regulatory standpoint. And although there is a double tax treaty between the U.S. and China, there's actually, I think there's been some kind of temporary guidance on mutual agreement procedures, but there isn't anything final and in place right now. That's true, right? I mean, there's no mutual agreement procedures in place between the U.S. and China, right? So I mean, so you could have trouble if you have disputes. You could have trouble basically avoiding double tax. So.
Yeah, of course, and sometimes the SIF may second guess the reasonableness or fairness of the price. Yes.
Yeah, and like I was talking about earlier about they have transfer pricing rules, but how well those rules are pushed down and managed down to the ground, they're not managed that well all the way to the ground. So you can find very different treatment depending on where you are provincially within China, even just who you're dealing with on the ground from an audit standpoint. So you need to take some care when you start putting things in place that are at least on the transfer pricing front, moving funds from the U.S. or China back to the U.S.
You mentioned all these different techniques, and I think you slipped something in that, at least from my point of view, I would highlight, which is that you said there you need the safe approval, right? The state foreign exchange approval before you can actually transfer the money out. And I don't know if you can comment on that, but we found that there's a lot of challenges sometimes, and a shocking number of approvals needed to do seemingly very simple things when you're in China. So, for example, the bank could block you from actually sending the money out. And getting that approval that you mentioned is maybe 80% of the battle rather than the 5 or 10% that you might think from the U.S. perspective. I don't know if you can comment on that.
Yeah, that's true. Because I think SIF knows the way I have mentioned before. They know all such kind of things. But the thing is, they always challenge the reasonableness and challenge the fairness of the transaction and whether it's true or not. But if you can convince them, definitely there is no any reason for them to not issue the approval letter. But the thing is, definitely you should that is the Chinese culture. You should always keep the business relationship with the local government, with SIF, with your bank, and with all the authorities. So that is a way to do the business friendly instead of.
There's some things you can do to kind of that are simple things really that they can kind of smooth the process a little bit. I mean, if you think about it, they want to know that you're dealing between two entities as if they were unrelated, right? So if you've got like she mentioned a services charge, have an intercompany service agreement that shows what the services are for. Have an intercompany invoice. Just have the basic things that you would have if you were dealing with a third party. And if you have those basic things put together, I think that can go a long ways to kind of smoothing the actual cash flow.
Yes.
Can you talk about the minimum capital and you have on here in your handout about paid capital and also about the honor loan agreements from the parent company to the subsidiary.
Do you mean registered capital?
Yeah, I assume that's what Adam, is that what you mean by this one?
Right. The paid-in capital, I was just trying to see the paid-in capital usually is higher than the other countries, and the trend is decreasing.
So that means they would frown on, in capitalization, they frown on loans being.
They have to put money into their specific bank and also need obtain a verification report about that. That is very strict in China. that's what I'm trying to say. So you might need to get the report about verification.
We're seeing a lot less and less rep offices, but in a rep office, you don't have to actually have paid capital.
They do have it. The cost is not that high.
Yeah.
The compound rate are, but it takes time.
I mean, there's pretty intricate rules, and it's a judgment process when we're talking about a WOFI as to what the paid capital needs to be. It looks at a number of different factors, projected income.
And if you have a loan, if the parent has a loan with the subsidiary over there, does the loan repayment or interest payments, does that create any difficulty with the China company sending back funds if you have a loan in place?
The capital is the bank will verify the resource of the cash.
As it comes in?
Yes.
I think on some of the payments out, are there exit taxes? Either business
Exit
tax
tax,
or-
withholding taxes, exit taxes, things like that. Payments out.
Actually, on the payroll, the China right now is pretty high. It's about 44% of gross salary will be total tax. You have a choice to have employee to pay by themselves, but usually you have that choice. But it depends on the contract. If you have contracts and you will pay for that, then it's pretty high. It's including all the benefits around 44% of gross.
He's asking about not withholding, exit taxes. So not individual tax, withholding on
Interest,
withholding on
dividends,
dividend, withholding on
service
payment.
fees.
So I'm not sure.
Well, interest withholding, dividend withholding. For example, if a Chinese company pays a dividend back to the U.S. parent, is it going to be subject to withholding? That's the question. If it were the other way around, if the U.S. company were paying a dividend to China, it'd be subject to withholding to us here. So we're treating that. So I guess the question is, we're going to have those sorts of issues. Similarly,
To be honest, I mean, so the answer is, I mean, there is withholding on dividends specifically in the double tax treaty. I don't know the rate, but yeah, there is withholding. And as far as withholding on like general services and things like that, I guess it would have to facts and circumstances, but I don't think that would typically be the case.
no, not unless the services were actually done in China. Well, since we're getting towards the end, let me kind of throw something out there for you, because like a lot of people in this room, I'm an exporter to China as well. I just happen to export legal services. Hopefully, is there anything that we as U.S. businesses have to be aware of or be careful of, or any kind of overriding advice on what to watch out for when you're trying to enter the market for business ourselves?
I think from you mean any advances regarding
Yeah, we're a U.S. company. We finally decided it's a big market. We can't ignore it. There's too much money there. We want to go in. We want to attack. We talked a lot about the specifics about WOFIs, about joint ventures. We talked about the regulatory environment. We haven't really talked about sort of the general business culture. And I guess that's what I'm more asking about. What would I do differently there than I would do here?
this is a big question. Very broad.
Good one to end on.
Yes, but I think basically because the culture is totally different. I think the first thing is you have to do some due diligence, like James mentioned before, and do some due diligence to see which industry areas is more interesting, is the business you want to engage in. And based on this, and you can do some homework to see whether there is any restriction based on the industrial area, and to try to find your potential Chinese partner or potential customers, and then to get to get some basic information about how things going on, and also you need to get some professional advice. Because when you do a lot of homework, basically you should have some basic idea about your development plan in China, and you needed to discuss your plan with professionals to see from the legal perspective, from tax perspective, from the accounting perspective, from the total whole operation perspective. which would be the best solution.